Hello everybody, this is Dr. Cole. It's Saturday afternoon, April 30th, and we're now entering week 9 of Political Science 1013 for what's supposed to be the second 8-week term, although it's going to end up at 9 or 10 weeks, the second term for spring 2022. Okay everybody, we're approaching the end of the term. Grades are due 2 weeks from today, Saturday, May 14th. I wanted to mention to everyone, if you would like to do a term paper, please contact me. You have a little less than 2 weeks to get something in, given that we have to get them graded and turn in grades 2 weeks from today, Saturday, May 14th. So please contact me either through the website or at david.cole@opsu.edu. If there's any topic you would like to discuss with me for the term paper, I'd be happy to provide any help or support that I can. Remember, it's not mandatory to do this, but it could help you raise a low grade from earlier in the term. Everyone, we're running our last 50-point discussion Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, May 2nd through the 4th this week. We expect, I think we've already sent an announcement out about the final exam. We've already scheduled it for Monday and Tuesday, May 9th and 10th. So we have a discussion coming up Monday through Wednesday, final exam the following week, and the term paper, and that's what we've got left for the spring 2022. Well, it's going to turn out to be about a 9.5 or 10 week session. Okay. The discussion asked you to consider the case of Roe versus Wade and the pending case that's been argued before the Supreme Court, the Dobbs case from the state of Mississippi. Most of you will be seeing this, more than likely this announcement won't get to you till May 1st or 2nd. We expect this decision to come down sometime in June, right at the end of the 2021-22 term. So we're expecting it in a few weeks. And it should be a momentous decision that may have the effect of shaking up American politics. It is expected that the 1973 Roe versus Wade decision will be at least curtailed to some extent, and states allowed to regulate or prohibit abortion to some degree if that 1973 decision is not completely overturned, which they may do. We'll have to wait and see. Okay. It's widely expected that Roe versus Wade will not survive intact, so we'll all be waiting eagerly with a lot of anticipation and foreboding in some quarters to see what will happen with that. So that's what we're asking you to discuss between Monday and Wednesday, the 2nd and the 4th. What do you think the Supreme Court ought to do about Roe versus Wade and its pending case where it's considering the issue of abortion again? Okay, we've given you 2 opinion pieces to look at on that. And try to post twice, if you possibly can, in the period from Monday the 2nd to Wednesday the 4th. Okay, everybody, one of the pieces you've got one piece about the Supreme Court for the final exam, which argues that the Supreme Court is political and always has been, always will be. Not much that we can do about it, although there are some people who will insist that the Supreme Court ought to stay out of politics as far as it possibly can. Okay, but please discuss, if you can, many of you as possible will take part, I hope, in this discussion from the 2nd through the 4th, coming up in just a couple of days, about the Roe versus Wade case and the Dobbs case from the state of Mississippi, which may end up with Roe versus Wade being overturned in whole or in part. Okay, so tell me what you think the Supreme Court ought to do about abortion in a couple of posts between Monday and Wednesday, and that will be our last 50-point discussion for the term. Everybody, for the final exam, the material will be Units 7 and 8, the class notes, and some readings that we've assigned to you. Unit 8 on Congress is the longer unit, so I've assigned 3 of the 4 readings on Congress and 1 about the Supreme Court. So let me take just a few minutes to say a few words about Unit 7 today, and we'll talk more about Unit 8 next week in our last message of the term that will be coming out to you about a week from today. Okay. In Unit 7, we talk a little bit about the federal courts in general before we move on to the Supreme Court in particular. Remember, the Supreme Court is a constitutional court. Almost all the cases it takes are on appeal. And in those cases appeal to it, it's considering only the law, not the facts. And very often, is the law compatible with the Constitution? Okay. That's what we call the Supreme Court's power of judicial review, the power to declare whether something is constitutional or not, which is what gives the Supreme Court a good deal of its power and authority. We talk a bit about how the Supreme Court does its business, how it schedules arguments, how it makes decisions about cases. We talk about the concept of majority, concurring, and dissenting opinions. Be sure you understand that terminology. Then we move on to talk about the concept of judicial review, and then the court as a political institution. Now, we mentioned the article we've assigned to you for the final exam insists that the court can't avoid being political, and that's a case that's often been made. But remember, it is, technically at least, on paper, a court, not a legislature. Although there are those who will insist that it often acts like a 9-person national legislature. Perhaps it cannot avoid doing that. But one way we see politics impacting on the Supreme Court is in the matter of Supreme Court vacancies, when an appointment has to be made to fill a vacancy on the Supreme Court. And that's happened several times recently. President Trump appointed 3 Supreme Court justices, and President Biden has just appointed one, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who has just been confirmed as a Supreme Court justice. All of these have been contentious. There were a tremendous amount of fireworks in the Senate Judiciary Committee when the confirmation hearings were held for all 3 of these justices. Okay. And we discussed the controversy that revolved around each one of them. Okay. When Justice Scalia died, President Obama made a nomination, but the Senate did not act on that before the 2020 presidential election. Okay. Once President Trump was elected, he appointed Neil Gorsuch, who is now serving on the court after being confirmed. Okay. Then Justice Anthony Kennedy retired. Brett Kavanaugh was nominated to take his place, and Kavanaugh eventually was confirmed, but not before highly contentious, explosive hearings in which allegations of sexual misconduct were made against Brett Kavanaugh, much as they had been made decades earlier against Clarence Thomas. Then Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. This was just before the 2020 presidential election. Judge Amy Coney Barrett was appointed and confirmed by the Senate in the weeks just before the 2020 presidential election. Democrats in Congress felt that the nomination and confirmation were rushed, but President Trump and the Republicans went ahead and did this anyway. Okay. Now, Justice Breyer has announced that he is retiring, and he's now had a replacement nominated and confirmed, Ketanji Brown Jackson. You might have seen some of the television clips of the highly contentious questioning of Justice Jackson that took place before the Senate Judiciary Committee, before she eventually was confirmed, on what was largely a party line vote, with 3 Republicans joining the 50 Democrats to confirm Ketanji Brown Jackson. Okay, so all these appointments have been controversial and contentious. It was thought that Ketanji Brown Jackson's might not be, because after all, there are still 6 justices appointed by Republican presidents on the court, and Ketanji Brown Jackson will be only the 3rd one appointed by a Democratic president. So it didn't change appreciably the liberal versus conservative balance on the court, if you assume that Republicans will nominate conservatives and Democrats will nominate liberals. But nevertheless, the Ketanji Brown Jackson confirmation was highly contentious and controversial in any case. All right. So we discussed the politics of Supreme Court vacancies and nominations as one important way in which the Supreme Court can be checked and balanced. If you think the Supreme Court has gone too far, made mistakes in its jurisprudence, then when a vacancy occurs, what you can do is appoint justices with different views to replace the justice who have died or retired from the Supreme Court. That's one important way of checking and balancing the Supreme Court. That's one point at which there is democratic influence on the Supreme Court, democratic with a small d, because the president, an elected official, gets to make the nomination, And then the senators get to weigh in on whether that nominee will be confirmed or not. You could also try to check and balance the Supreme Court by constitutional amendment, for instance, or by impeaching and removing a justice. But those are very, very difficult ways to go about checking and balancing the Supreme Court. We go on to discuss 4 important landmark decisions of the Supreme Court, highly controversial and important decisions with considerable political significance. We talk about 4 of those. Brown versus the Board of Education, dealing with segregation and desegregation of the public schools from back in the 1950s. Then we talk about Roe versus Wade on abortion, and then more recently, the Citizens United decision on campaign finance, and the Obergefell decision on same-sex marriage. We wind up Unit 7 with a discussion of those 4 landmark decisions of the Supreme Court. That's what we try to do then in Unit 7. We'll try to say a bit more to you about Unit 8 on Congress next time, and what's going to be our last message to you for the term. We have a discussion coming up Monday through Wednesday, the 2nd through the 4th, on the Supreme Court and abortion. And after that, what we'll have left is your term paper, if you choose to submit one, and the final exam, which we've already announced, I believe, for the 9th and 10th, Monday and Tuesday, the 9th and 10th, not this week, but the following week. So we'll be talking to you one last time about a week from now. We'll try to discuss Unit 8 on Congress at that time and bring this thing to an end for the 2020-2022 spring term. So I hope you'll take part in the discussion, and we'll talk to you one last time a week from now at this time. Take it easy.